Great. Well, good evening, everybody. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the Bunurong people on whose land this podcast is being broadcast this evening. While I'm on introductions, I'd also like to thank the Radio Amateur Society of Australia, who support us by letting us use their Zoom account, which is really good. We're not limited by the free Zoom account. So thank you, RASA. I'd also like to, of course, note that normally we're here to talk about Morse code, but what I'm finding more and more, both in these sessions and also when I chat to people and exchange emails and you see Facebook posts around the place, you can't have many Morse code contacts if you're struggling with antennas. So I thought it would be really good to get someone who knows a lot about antennas and not only knows about them, but has a track record of doing stuff with them and being really very successful with it. I think that if you don't know Callum and DX Commander, you will certainly know both Callum and DX Commander by the end of this session. I've been using one of your signature antennas here for quite some time, Callum. And I know Graham, VK5 Golf Golf, is also a big fan. And we also take away the DX Expedition model with us when we go to DXpeditions in the South Pacific. And, you know, we can talk a little bit about that and why that's an absolute hit. If for no other reason than when it's collapsed, it fits nicely inside a normal suitcase. That has been an absolute game changer when it comes to planning for excess freight and difficult questions from security people in airports. There's plenty of interesting anecdotes we have around some of the stuff we've taken through airports. So I'm hoping this evening, in fact, no, I know this evening will be a very interesting interview, and I'm very pleased to introduce Callum M0MCX from up the other side of the world. We're all having a beer or a wine, and Callum's finishing his cup of coffee, I expect. So I'll pass it across to you, Callum, and perhaps if we could start with a little bit of an introduction about yourself and how you got into the hobby of amateur radio.
We've all got a story about how we started in this, didn't we? At school, we had a combined cadet force, and responsible young men, which I wasn't, I can assure you, were allowed to play with all these knobs and controls and the long wire. You know, I just used to get fascinated by the fact that they could hear other people. My screen's got a bit blank.
We can see you now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Fine. So that was, I realised that radio existed. My father was kind of technical as well, and he was in the Royal Signals, and occasionally, you know, we'd be, you know, he'd try and explain that at night time there was something called a D-layer. I seem to remember he said something about this. I just knew there was a difference between night and day when it comes to LRF. And then as a young man, I hitchhiked to the south of France, and I stood at the back of this British beautiful small ship. And to cut a long story short, I actually got a job on a millionaire's, you know, an old-fashioned proper millionaire, his yacht, beautiful yacht. And in the bridge was a huge, great piece of kit. And we had a wire, you know. And we'd be sailing around the Mediterranean, and the boss would come up to the bridge, tell the captain he wanted to make a phone call. And the captain would pick up this thing, press a load of buttons. I had no idea what he was doing. ATU? I don't know. And he would pick up the phone, literally, you know, it's one of those, like a phone with a handset and a push to talk on it. And he'd say, Portishead Radio, Golf Victor, India, Delta. That was our call sign. And bloody hell, this guy near Bristol would answer him. I couldn't believe it. We're in the middle of the ocean with a bit of wire, you know. I guess it was a kind of 100-watt radio. I don't know. Anyway, so then I realized that there was kind of an application for radio. And I thought one day I'm going to find out more about this. And of course, then there was the CB craze. And I realized that there was a bit more to radio than I appreciated. But I promised myself when I became a little bit older, I would. Oh, I tell you what, I actually tried. I went to lessons, evening class. Oh my goodness! But I've got terrible ADHD, and I can't concentrate. If you can teach me at a really fast pace, I'll keep up. But if you slow down at all, I'll lose concentration. So there's Brian Fields mucking around with something. What are you doing, Brian? Oh, he's walked off. Anyway, so now I got to say this. I think the RSGB, maybe the ARRL, probably your guys, everybody has done a study about how old generally people are that enter the hobby in a serious way. And I think it is in the sort of 40s, 50s, because that's when you got maybe a tiny little bit more time. You're not spending all your money on children and mortgages and, well, in some of us cases, multiple wives. Luckily, I've only ever had the one. And then we've got a little bit more money, haven't we? And a bit more time and a bit more experience of life to be able to contemplate understanding the license conditions and taking a test and getting a ticket and all that sort of stuff. And I think I was 41, 42 when I took my test. I became an M3, which is in Australia, you've got it as well, haven't you? The foundation ticket. But then I discovered that there was a fast track route to getting a full ticket, but the last ever exam was coming up in about 3 months' time. Otherwise, you got to do intermediate and all sorts of stages. And I thought, oh, well, I'll do that. So I bought some books and we went on holiday for 2 weeks. And in the afternoon, when the sun was too hot for me and the kids are out with Wendy, I would sit in the it was a little apartment that my father owned with a pencil and I'd do all these multiple choice questions. Then I'd mark myself. And then I'd do it very lightly. See, I'd use an eraser. I'd rub it all out. About 20 questions later, I'm back to the beginning. So I'd learnt my ticket by just answering and getting wrong a lot of things. I got no tutorial, really. And then I passed it. And, of course, the other thing is I didn't have any money, really. I remember, we got wireless mouses and stuff now. But I had a wired mouse, and I'd broken the bloody cable. And I don't know how much a new mouse was, but I literally couldn't afford a new mouse. So I unscrewed it all and, made a complete hash of it. But I got my mouse working again. That's how broke we were, you see. So when I went to this club, I noticed there was some beetle-infestated reel of wire, smelly stuff. There must have been a mile, well, a couple of kilometers of it was twin drop lead for telecoms, phone wire. And I asked if I could have this. And they said, yeah. And I literally, had to wash it. And I used a razor blade to split these wires into two. And at least I had a load of wire now. And I did every experiment under the sun. I made little verticals for 10 meters. I made dipoles and loops. And there was a lot of mystique, wasn't there? Oh, this is about 25 years ago. I was told, no uncertain terms, by many people that verticals don't work. And so I never really concentrated on vertical. And when I put them up, sure enough, I didn't really know how to test an antenna, really. Very often I'd plug it in and... sorry, I'm watching a lamb inside. I'll show you. Hang on. Can we zoom into this? I don't know if you see this, but there is a lamb that's accidentally got stuck in my field. He's on the other side of the gate. Sorry about that. Because my dogs are going to come in when Wendy arrives, and the lamb's going to die. All right, so never mind. We will deal with that in a minute, or whatever. Thinking about it, I don't think the dogs are here for a while. Sorry, you having a good time? Everybody's on bloody mute, aren't they? If I told a joke now, I wouldn't know if anybody's laughing. Sorry, let's get back to me. I want to get back to this vertical business because, sorry, am I completely waffling? Am I going off at the tangent? Where do you want me to go now?
No, look, this is fine. This is fine. I guess the
Uh,
next question I was going to ask you was,
yeah.
tell us a little bit about the transition from it being a hobby to the creation of DX Commander. How did that come about?
Okay. So I publish on YouTube now, but before I published on YouTube, we had a monthly newsletter, at the club. And I soon worked out that the editor of the club newsletter was forever after articles, right? So I thought, oh, once a month, well, I'm doing that many little experiments. I've got my little camera, and I'll do a little experiment, take 3 or 4 pictures, write it up. It was pathetic, good stuff. I was just reinventing the world. And I think people felt sorry for me. And I got, the 1957 edition of the ARRL handbook and, all sorts of other stuff that people would give me. Because, we lived in a nice house, had a good job and everything else. But by the time, I've got my kids and the schooling and everything else, I literally, I was forever broke. So I got given, some stuff. I bought a nice radio. But anyway, so the transition, right. I got used to taking a load of pictures, writing something up and putting it out. And because of that, it forced me, I think, into reinventing the wheel. So if somebody said something didn't work very well, I'd have a go at it, maybe. And I taught myself the modeling, where you can just draw a little wire, really basic, press a few buttons and go, oh, that would be quite good, maybe. And what I learned was, with experience, the far field plot. So, most of my RF going over there or going up there or out in all directions or whatever else. What I learned very quickly was a low to the ground, anything, right, on 40 meters has a bubble of RF. And it makes me laugh, actually, because there's a lot of people you will speak to who've got a 40-meter antenna at 4 meters off the ground across a couple of apple trees, whatever else. And they're always telling you that it's east-west or north-south, and therefore they believe that their signal is going, the other way. And it's not. It won't be on 40 meters. It makes me laugh, actually, how some people struggle on 40 meters to get a signal out, because any piece of wire you give me and a bloody fence post, and I can cruise on 40 meters all day long. But anyway, how did I make the transition? It's a good story. I might as well tell you. We went on holiday in 2013, and we had to take 2 cars. It was a 2-week holiday. It was a house. It was by the beach and everything. I literally took everything. Oh, no, I only took a TS2000, but I had an ACOM 2000 with me, right? When he said, what do you need that for? I said, well, because we're by the sea, our signals will be attenuated. So I need the amplifier to lift the signal up, right? I was lying, of course. And I took enough poles to put up a dipole at about 12 meters. I had a roof racks of stuff, and honestly, the kids and the dog had to go in the Mini, and my Mercedes, the estate, the station wagon thing, was full of stuff. I took my tools, wire, everything. As soon as we got to this place, I realized that the wind was going to be too much for everything I'd brought, but I had brought a couple of telescopic poles, like a DX Commander pole. So I thought, oh, well, I'll have to put up a vertical. Now, I knew, vertical, I was told, had an impedance with a good ground of about 35 ohms. I've never found that actually. Maybe it is, I don't know, on a perfect ground, miles of copper sheet. I've never found that. I've always found it about 50 ohms. But anyway, so I put this thing up. I just put four radials down, a quarter wave for 40 meters. Wendy went to bed and I just started keying up. And God, I was up all night. I was up until I think 6 in the morning. I think I ran over 550 contacts in that night. And of course, on 40 meters, I followed the other side of the sun. So it started off into Europe, and then very quickly I was getting America. Um, and then as the sun's coming back round and you're starting to go into darkness, and we're coming into lightness, I was getting ZLs and VKs on 40. I couldn't believe it. In fact, I was really confused because I thought that 40 meters, I didn't appreciate at that time the difference between long path and short path, but I was getting a bit of all sorts. But then one day I thought to myself, well, I've got this 40 meter. I haven't got I had a coax switch with me actually. I think to remember, but I thought, why can't we do a fan dipole? Why can't we have a vertical on 40? And then up the side, I'll put 20. At least I can have two, on one of my switches. And so I did that. I think they were too close together. I wasn't getting a very good match, actually. So I had another pole with me. So I thought, well, and I built just with tape and cable ties around a 20, I think a 15, a 10, and a 6, actually, up the side of this thing. It looked so. I got the pictures somewhere. And so I just ran, multiple verticals off the one pole. Oh, good. Here's John. I'll show you John. Where is he? John's coming to save the lamb. I think this is delayed because I can see him and you can't for some reason. Never mind. Whatever. Big John, he's the site manager. He's going to save the lamb. Poor lamb's trying to get out. Why can't you see that? Field cam 2. Oh, there he is. John will be running around now trying to find this damn thing. Oh, look. Oh, he's got him. He's got him. Can you see that?
Yes, yes.
Just
Send out
about.
heartfelt thanks to John.
Well done, Big John.
Good on you, John.
So is that from your home site at Honolulu?
So this is Holly Farm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's Holly Farm. And John, when the camera picks up, he's the site manager around here. Yeah.
Before we left
So
for
I'm not
UK,
at
I
home.
lived about 2 k's up the road from there.
What, Kenilworth somewhere or?
Some common.
Oh, Borsal Common, yeah, okay. So,
So Callum,
yeah.
how far is your field from your office or where you are now?
Yeah, it's quite a way actually. It's 45 meters in a straight line. So we dug a big hole, big trench, put 4-inch pipe in, and I bought something called EcoFlex 15, 100 meters of that. And they're my two main transmit lines that we use because I've got two, station 1 and station 2 here. We've got some LDF 450 that will be going in the next couple of months instead. Can
we just finish the story about how DX Commander came along before we get into details?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
So
it's okay.
And then I just thought, well, I just started doing some more experiments, but this time just putting a tiny bit of separation on the elements, if you know what I mean. And I literally, you got a hacksaw and bits of aluminium and everything. I've got some museum pieces around here somewhere. And I ended up getting, 40, 30, 20, 17, the whole lot. And this was 2014, 2015 now. And it was literally handmade, really thick 1/4-inch 6mm aluminium plate, square plate, drilling holes, and all sorts of stuff. And I took 20 of them to a little rally, and I don't think I was even making a profit, just you know, anybody want these? I probably made, I don't know, £20 or something each, and a few people actually bought these things, and that gave me the confidence, maybe the funds actually, to find a laser cut company. So I'd draw it all out in Visio and send it off, make a DXF file or whatever, and then they would cut it out and it would come back. And I was kind of using some of the wrong components, really, but you know, the aluminium was too small, really, looking back. The plates we were using at the time was UHMWPE, which is it's a plastic, but it cracks after 3 or 4 years in the sun. And then we had a family business that I'd started years ago, and I utterly fed up with the bloody thing. And I said to Wendy, "Why can't I leave this and get a little unit in Kevin's farm?" It was a tiny little place, and gradually we had a bit of a falling out. I said, "I don't want to do this job. You know, I want to go and play with my antennas." And I said, "I'm sure I can make a go of it." You know, and it was a bit of a transition, about a year. You know, I'd go, you know, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd be at my little workshop. By 10 o'clock, I'd get a bloody phone call. You need to come into the office to sort some bloody problem out, you know. And but eventually I just said to the accountant and Wendy, I said, "Let's just shut this bloody thing down completely. I'm going to do DX Commander," which is about my fourth or fifth company, actually. I've had a few different, I've swapped and changed, done all sorts of weird, wonderful things. You get experience of life, and I'm a risk taker anyway. It's part of my ADHD, take massive risks. And I just jumped ship, literally, you know, and thought, well, I better make a go of this. And the other thing is, I mean, it's a bit like if you've ever made like a Yagi or anything, you focus. Okay, when you focus, it's kind of really relaxing because you can only think of one thing, and because my brain's like a bloody slideshow sometimes. I can't stop it. So as I'm talking to you right now, I'm trying to hold back all the other thoughts that keep wanting to fly into me, you know. But I have taken my medication this morning, so that would help. And there we are. And I think it was the Classic was the first one. If you've got a Signature, then that's genuinely better. I wish we'd never had the Classic, actually. But the Signature, we've never, ever had a Signature 9 fail in a storm or anything else. I checked with Lockie the other day. He's never sent a spare out. It's quite incredible. In fact, DX Engineering, they're a reseller in the US. Yeah, occasionally, you know, they'd get a little fault or whatever else, but they absolutely assure me that I am in the quality. You know, if you've got MFJ over here, we are up here. We never have to have a phone call or conversation about quality or anything else. But that's because I was totally fixated from the start about getting everything right. And we're like that as a family, you know. We're like, you know, there was a guy I heard, he used to make boats, big boats. And he had an expression, he probably stole this from somewhere else, which is if a customer's got a problem with something, you don't think of the money. What you think is, what you just do the right thing. What is the right thing? I don't know. Is it we fly one out now? You know, he's on DXpedition, he's got one of these and it's broken. You know, what do? You just send him another one. I say, Lockie, you know, we've made the money. You know, I mean, you know, just send him another one. So, but anyway, to have a successful business, particularly in amateur radio, where it's a very close-knit community, people talk and everything else, you can't do that if your product doesn't work. Because too many people will find out about it literally overnight.
Yep.
I mean, I've got the haters. There's always the 3% who go, you know, whatever else. They've got a problem in their life, haven't they? Yep. But in the main, if you believe in what you've done and you're absolutely fixated, And Wendy calls it, you're hyper focused on stuff. She can't talk to me, you know. I've got a problem with the washing machine, and she thinks I'm listening to her. No,
I don't. I don't think you're on your own there.
It's like when you go around these DIY stores, you know, and you're walking past the ladders and everything else. All of a sudden, you see the painters' poles, don't you? You go, my God, how'd you know? It's only $15. That would do 20 meters.
That leads me on, Callum, if I can ask, and you're absolutely right. The amateur radio market is a particularly interesting market. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but there's often the joke in Australia, at least, that we have short arms and deep pockets. And I've watched over the years, my involvement with verticals and particularly de-expeditioning, and the continued what I call, positive feedback and awareness of what verticals can do. Because, verticals used to be the thing. And then we've gone through this phase of having all of these end-fed thingamies that run into some sort of a magic black box.
Yeah.
And as you say, we're not big on apple trees anymore, but we run them between a couple of gum trees, maybe 10 meters high. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about the evolution of the products, because I've seen through from the first DX Commander to particularly the Expedition models, a fair bit of evolution in your product in terms of the spacers, obviously the poles. I don't think the wire has changed much. Copper wire hasn't seen much development in the last 10 years, has it? But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, so we started with the classic because I was a 40-meter fan, so I didn't faff about the higher bands. Any product I wanted to produce had to do 40. All right, so I'll tell you a funny story because this is quite interesting. Most 10-meter poles you buy, and you need a little bit longer than that actually for 40 meters. It's not long enough. So I just took the wire, went over the top. To start with, I used to let it kind of fly around, when I was developing it. And then I thought, I'll just strap it down. It was a complete accident one day. I was in the backyard. Oh, you're not American. I might be able to say garden. Well, I was in the back garden and I cut this wire, I don't know, 11.5 meters or whatever. And I'll just strap it down here, tape it up, put the meter on it. And it tuned at 7.15 or whatever. And then as an accident, I discovered that it was also resonant on 15 meters. And that problem had plagued me for years. Because 40 meters isn't actually resonant. Because, right, I don't like having an ATU in line. I just want my radio all the way through to the antenna. I don't want to start putting transformers and whatever. What I've discovered, and this is all about something called end effect, actually. So the end of a wire effectively automatically shortens whatever you try and do, not the velocity factor, the end effect. But if you've got the third harmonic, because a vertical and a dipole is resonant on every other harmonic, if you like, so 3, 7 to 21. But it's not, because on 40 meters, you've got the end effect. But on 15 meters, you've got 3 of these, and end effect is only happening once. So that's why you get an antenna that's resonant, let's say on exactly 7 megahertz, well, say 7.2, you'll find it won't be resonant on 21.6. It'll be like 21.9. It's always a bit higher because it's only having the end effect once, even though it's the third harmonic. But by folding it over, it effectively counteracts that. It drops 40 and it brings 15 in. So you were talking about the evolution of the product. So once I'd nailed 40 and 15, I thought, oh, good, because that's only one element now. And it's a 3/4 wave isn't actually as bad as we're told in the books. on average ground, a 3/4 wave will actually fractionally beat a quarter wave. On very good ground, a quarter wave will actually beat a 3/4 wave. But anyway, so the evolution, once I'd nailed the 40-meter problem and the 15 problem and the 10-meter classic, which was our only product to start with, my supplier sent me a load of samples, like a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, different sizes, you know. And I looked at the 7 and I thought, well, we could do maybe a little coil. I kind of made a couple of cock-ups, and it never really sold until on the 7-meter pole, I made something called the Rapide, which is ideally for the back garden. And they take their 40-meter and they go round 13 times, about half a meter off the ground, and then up and back, and that does 40. And that way, because I was back to the short arms and long pockets, I wanted to see if I could save, 20-30% of the overall cost, because the pole is quite expensive. And if I just cut down the amount of material that we needed, just shave, could I still maintain a product? So we got that. Then the expedition was, I think it was Rowley actually, ZL1BQD, who said, like you said, the trouble is, if you take a 115 centimeter classic pole, right, and wrap it up and hold it like this, then you're stopped, aren't you? So having something 75 centimeters, I think is a bit shorter than that actually, that can fit in a case would be ideal. Now, the trouble is the expedition, it's actually as long as, if not a little bit longer than the classic, but that last section is very light, And the thing is, you would think that the heavier it is, the stronger it is, but for a telescopic, very thin-walled fiberglass, what I've learned is that's fine. Let it completely bend over in the wind and it'll come back up again. There's people guide these things all over the place, and actually that's when they start breaking. So the expedition, and I had a couple of iterations. It wasn't until Tom put one in his backpack and he walked around the Isle of Arran. There's a little video out on the internet. He walked around the Isle of Arran, and he'd get up like at 7 in the morning. He would do about 15, 20 Ks, because he's ex-military now, but he was military at the time. He would stop, put up his expedition, which he said took him about 10 minutes. This was the old style. And then he'd play radio for a couple of hours and cook his evening meal, sleep, get up. And he walked 70 miles, I think, in 5-6 days. But he came, he's a friend of mine. He came and he said he had some suggestions. Is there any way you could make threading the elements quicker? Well, he just told me, really, he didn't really have much. He just told me all the problems he had. So I just thought about this and thought, how could we? And then I used one as well. And I put one up in the dark, literally in the dark, with a bloody flashlight thing, and because I wanted to hit the grey line very early on. And I just thought to myself, this is too hard. If I can do this in the dark, it just took me too long. So I just redesigned the way the elements clipped onto the... I think keeping things really simple. And the other thing Tom told me was stop using all those bloody clips and everything. The military would just use a little, they would find a way of doing it without more bits. Now, don't get me wrong, particularly the Americans, they want to open the bag and have tons of bits and clips and everything else. And when we stopped doing the clips, people were saying, you're not doing little clips now. We used to have to put this clip on when you made it. We use stopper knots now, and just supply higher quality shock cords to kind of offset it. Anyway, the development was losing some components that just looked good in the bag, but actually didn't add any value. Talking to military people about what not to use and when. We used to buy shock cord from some eBay supplier, rope services. And only to find out that actually there's a professional company called Marlow who do shock cord that's kind of guaranteed and it's made in the UK. So we started buying that, and that's like 4 times the price of cheap shock cord. You know, everything is really very high quality. And we're actually, I mean, I know it doesn't mean anything to you, but we're actually an authenticated, made in Britain company, right? The pole itself comes from the Far East, but all the other bits we source from UK. You said about the wire. Do you know, wire is fascinating. I sent an inquiry out to every blooming wire company. And there's very few companies that actually make wire. What they do is they buy, 5-ton reels of thin copper wire and make, a 24 strand. They don't make the copper. No. Our copper wire, I think, originates possibly Spain, and before that, probably bloody Australia. I don't know. But there's only 2 companies in the UK that take this wire and then add the sheath on the top. I didn't know this. It took me ages. You know, the PVC sheath at the outside of your wire. And I wanted a UK supplier. And I found both these companies. And we actually deal with both these companies for different things. So the DX10 wire, which is good to -40 centigrade, and is just fantastic wire, originally came as a twisted pair. And I said to the factory, I don't want it twisted because I'll have to untwist it, like a massive drum. So, cut a long story short, we got that down to 100-meter reels, and it's made for us, single core, with 24 conductors. And that works fine because there's very few. Well, I only know of one other piece of wire you can buy that was actually designed from the ground up as an antenna wire. And that's what we call DX50. But it's the stuff that is supplied to the military, certainly in the UK, which is that Kevlar threads, then a braided copper. If you cut it, it looks like miniature coax, actually, the way the braid is over the top, and then this green PVC over the top again, which is good for about 135 kilos. Never tested it. I mean, that's quite a lot, actually, 135. I mean, I could hang myself. Yeah, am I going off track at all?
No. Look, I wanted then to sort of follow on. I know from our own experiences, getting the actual antenna up in the air and the pre-cut elements attached, and all that sort of stuff probably takes us. It's a shame Luke couldn't make it, but when we're on Norfolk Island or Vanuatu, it probably takes us, I don't know, 15 minutes to get it up in the air.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they're incredibly robust. I mean, Vanuatu is a reasonably harsh environment with winds and salt and all the rest of it. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about radials and earthing. I know here at home I have nearly 40 meters of dog mesh fencing that I mowed the grass right down to the roots one day. I nailed down all of this fencing mesh, bonded it, and it performs really, really well. But when we go to Norfolk Island and Vanuatu and places like that, we've left behind radials because radials, of course, it's a hell of a lot of wire. And when you're traveling, that equals a lot of weight. So actually rolling out the radials takes longer than it does to put up the antenna itself. We typically put out about 32 radials. Because we have the real estate, they're 10 meters long. But I know Graham, for example, I think he has 32 radials at 3 meters or 3.5 meters long. And Graham's getting fantastic results with a vertical. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about what you've learnt about earthing and radials and maybe some of the myths that go along with that part of vertical antennas.
So, is it Dr. John Roberts from 80 into, I don't know, in the 30s, there was a famous document which became legendary for the ARRL, ham radio, and everybody else, which was the top of the performance curve was 120 radials at a quarter of a wavelength long. And this used to be thrown at me all the time. I thought, well, I mean, who the hell is going to do that? So I originally found Rudy Sevens. He did some experiments. I mean, my experiments, which I'll cover in a minute, aren't scientific as Rudy's. But Rudy had, I don't know, but let's say he put 16 quarter waves out. He then cut them in half and added them back in. So it was exactly the same amount of copper. And it was the result was so negligible, it wasn't almost not worthwhile writing about. So I just remembered that. And I have been trimming my portable system down to the point I'm now, my radials are 2 meters, 7 feet long for all portable work. And I'm lucky. I've got a switch here, remote switch, and I've got a tree vertical, right, which I built about 2 months ago for the YouTube channel, just to show people, because they would go, I don't know if a vertical works, and I showed them how to build a vertical from scrap, 20 meters. You know, throw it up a tree, bring it down, and I used my 2 meter long radials. They're still down there, actually. That's where they are. I lost them, and I can switch between a DX Commander 12.4, which has 32 12-meter radials, or 32 2-meter radials. And on my S meter and on transmit and receive, I can't blooming tell the difference. And particularly if you're within a few wavelengths of maybe the ocean, I mean, for a start off, you could cut that in half again. So I jury's out for me. And some people say that, the amount of radials will affect your tune and everything. Maybe it does by a whisker, but I mean, yeah, for 40 meters and my 4 square, I mean, that was a hell of an investment. I put a ton of radials down. But I don't know. I mean, I'm about to put another DX Commander up in the corner of the field, and I didn't. I just thought, what radials should I do? And I'll probably do 3 meters, 4 meters for 40 meters. I mean, we were all led to believe, right? All of us, including me, that the radial thing was important. It really is, yes. But somewhere between 8 quarter waves and 16 quarter waves, or 32 eighth waves, and then maybe 16 eighth waves, it gets to the point where now you've covered the near field, because people say, oh, I'm going to take mine and I'm going to zigzag them like this and go round in circles. Just put lots of little ones out. You still work, right? Well, that's the other one, isn't it? Will it work, right? Because everything works, doesn't it? It's just like, well, where do you want to get to? Yeah. Because the other thing is that the 3 dB, which we know is half the power, all right, or double it is 3 dB. So that's 100 watts to 200 watts, or 50 watts to 100 watts. Next time you're just having one of these long-winded chats on 20 or 40 with some guy you're just getting on with, just do an experiment. Go, hey, I'm going to go to 50 now from 100. Just how's that? Have you done it yet? Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, no, I can't tell any difference. Or tell them you've done it the other way around, right? Go, I'm now on 100, but you're on 50. And you go, oh yeah. You say it's a bit stronger now. Yeah, right. Because you got the psychosomatic business, haven't you? You just go, do you think this is louder or quieter? Don't know. Because 3 dB is really hard.
You're absolutely bang on the money, Callum. I know, Graham and I, he's about, about 800K away, Graham? And we'll get on 40 meters sometimes and start on 100 watts, and conditions are really good. The noise floors may be only S2, Graham signals 5 or 10 over 9, and we've been as low as 100 milliwatts between one another. Now, you know, the other thing you mentioned is about efficiency of the antenna system and the feed line, and the fact that you're not doing any matching. You are tuning your antennas. You know, and I know that, I mean, you're going to laugh. I don't have a 102-foot doublet. You'll be disappointed to know I have a 66-foot doublet, 10 meters aside, and it serves a purpose very, very well. But I think your point is really well made. And for those who are in a smaller block of land or section, if you're in New Zealand, you don't need 10-meter long radials. You know, my last QTH, they were 3 meters long. I think Graham's are 3 meters long. And like you, Callum, I've read and seen a lot of, I won't call it propaganda. Let's just say it's alternative thoughts. But the reality is, I think in practice, something between the optimum for amateurs is in the order of 16 to 32 radials, depending how committed you are. And in the order of 3 to 5 meters long is more than enough. And
it is.
Now you're saying 2 meters. Now
I am genuinely down to 2.
Yeah. So, you know, there might be half a dB in it between 120 quarter 120 quarter wavelength radials and what we do as amateurs, but you know, we're not operating professional commercial stations, are we?
No. It's actually really, really difficult to have a mismatch on gain or receive of more than 3 dB, even if you screw it up. It really is. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're paying 100,000 a year, you know, for some AM license, I don't know, whatever, and you know, you're going to want, you know, everything you can get. Particularly, that's the other thing that the John Roberts thing did. The 120 radials. When you actually read the paper, it was for a shortened radiator, not quarter waves. He didn't test it on a quarter wave. So that's why Rudy Sevens quickly found out. I think it was, so if that's the curve, you know, where 4 is there, 8 is there, 16 is here, and 32 is there. And then I think there's a quarter of a dB between that and 64, you know. So, and that's why, well, when I looked at that curve that Rudy Sevens did, I thought, well, 32 2 meter long, if I'm completely covering that near field, I'll just let the rest of the world have it. And the thing is, I can grab the whole bloody lot, you see, and just do that cable tie, and it goes in one of my little plastic boxes.
And the other thing, you know, I know this should be, well, it should be obvious to it all, of course, is the low angle of radiation. Could you perhaps make a few comments about the radiation pattern of verticals versus an end-fed half wave that's 6 meters off the ground?
The trouble is with the end-fed half waves is that everybody builds them differently. Whether they're going straight up and along, up a bit and along, up a long way and down, feed point here, feed point there. I think it's end-fed halfway is for those people who actually, in my opinion, aren't actually that interested in antennas. They just want a signal from somewhere, because you're never quite sure. You know, end-fed halfway very often is more than a quarter wave. It's very difficult to determine where your signal really is going, particularly on the upper bands. Again, on 40 meters, it's actually difficult to screw up. It really is. For that daytime NVIS thing, you know, just shove it over a bush, you know. I mean, the only difference between an end-fed half wave and a dipole is that it's twice as long that way and it's got nothing that way. But anyway, and then you've got your matching transformer and all that stuff. I don't. I'm not anti end-fed half waves. I just don't see the benefit. There we go. Right. I'm never quite sure when people talk to me about their end-fed half wave, it goes up and then along, you know. And is it off the ground, the feed point, or is it a bit lower down? And you try and model it. And now you can model a end-fed half wave in MMANA. And then you start looking at 15 and 20 and 10 and whatever else. And there's lobes all over the shot. Whereas I'm a kind of a simple guy. So I like dipoles, particularly for the low bands on the daytime, yeah, or mid-evening, where it loads the ground dipole, 80, 160 or 40, whatever else, and 20. It's really easy to get that first hop, you know, which is generally up to, say, 2,000 kilometers. That first hop. Now, we're different to VKs and ZLs, is that I think I've got 50 countries, you know, within my first hop. And so in your guy, if you're on 20 or 15 or 10, I mean, you either got, you know, the Indonesians and the Japanese and you know, crowding you out, which is another topic really. But for me, Cyprus, I think, is 2,500 kilometers away. So I know it's within one hop, but more likely two hops for me. That's the other side of the Mediterranean. It's near Israel now, the Middle East. Then the next hop is going to be, you know, sort of Kazakhstan and India and that sort of thing. So yeah, right angles. When I used to do all my modeling, so I wouldn't be confused about, you can accidentally model an antenna that looks quite good if you measure it at 20 degrees off the horizon as a takeoff angle, right? But that doesn't actually get you very far in reality. That is more likely a single hop, and it will be about 700 miles, you know, or 1,000 clicks. But if I measured in the maths at 5 degrees off the horizon, I know I can. That's really hard, right? So if I've got a model that works well at 5 degrees, I know it'll still work at 10 and 15 and 20, but so I push it down to the hardest point I can. So I'm a 5 degrees off the horizon thinking sort of guy, because I know that at 5 degrees off the horizon, if I've got a good signal and the band's open, then I'm all the way around the world, you know, because it might be 4 degrees, it might be 3 degrees, it might be 6, it might be 7. Rarely long path. I'm talking multi-hop stuff, rarely above about 8 degrees. So we're after low angle, aren't we? If it's DX, we're after. But in daytime on 40 meters, I'm not interested in DX. I want to speak to Fred down in bloody Brighton, you know. So yeah, it just so happens that on a reasonable ground, a vertical will do that for us. We'll also get the higher angle because unless you're by the ocean, on average ground, I think the peak gain is 21 degrees or something on a vertical. But there's still plenty of low angle as well, you see, which you can get with a dipole, but it's unfortunately fixed and you need the height. I seem to remember really at least a half to 3/4 of a wavelength. So on 20 meters, we're into somewhere between 10 and 15 meters high. It's actually quite high and then in two directions, we're going to beat our vertical, but then you need to rotate it. Well, then you might as well just put a tower up or a mast and stick a Yagi on it, you know. There's a trade-off, isn't there? When do you stop playing? I mean, you know, I've gone absolutely bloody mad at this field of mine. There's John again. I got to be honest, I was kind of happier when I just had the one antenna, right? It was just easy, isn't it? You know, you only got the one. Well, I'm a 2 antenna man, right? I'm a vertical for my transmit, and I like various ideas for my receive. You know, that might be a loop on the ground, simple dipoles, all sorts of stuff. Because if it's daytime, I want this NVIS. If it's nighttime, I want it a bit longer. And some verticals, depending on where verticals aren't noisy, your environment might be noisy. So if you in an environment with a bit of noise, then put a loop on the ground and stick the preamp on. You've got your 20 dB or a gain or something on there, very low noise, so you can still hear and you can still transmit. Because we went there, it was the Yagi, it was in the 60s, when people thought, oh, we don't need 2 antennas anymore, we can do everything with 1. We do it with the Yagi and 100 watts. In my day, you could work the world at 100 watts. Yeah, but you had really low noise, right? Most of these guys in the 60s, by the time they were 55, 60 years old, had at least a 20-meter tower and a 3-element multi-band bloody Yagi. We don't generally do that now. Everybody's got like, I can't possibly do that. My neighbors will go nuts. So they just want simple, ways out of the problem. And the simple way out of the problem is a bunch of bloody quarter waves sticking out the ground on a DX command. Honestly, that's it'll just work every time, won't it? I mean, I was told that would never work. But
I mean, look, you've hit the nail on the head, and I've also just seen what the time is, but it is becoming a far bigger problem, no doubt, for you guys over there as well as us. Most of us are on smaller blocks. I'm fortunate; I'm on 900 square meters, but many of us are now on 400 and 500 square meter blocks of land. We've been inundated with cheap electronic equipment that's creating an incredible amount of noise. So, it might be, if you're still keen, another time, it would be great to talk about some of your experiments and thoughts on receive antennas. But what we might do, just with a little bit of overrun time we've got, Callum, is see what questions we have out there.
Yeah, do that.
I know this is, at least to me and everyone I speak to, antennas are a fascinating topic, and it's something we should probably all put more effort into than we are. So I might throw the floor open and see if anyone has any questions for Callum.
Yeah, Peter over in West Australia.
Go ahead, Peter.
I'm one of those types that runs a long wire with a transformer box on the end.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a story behind it, so I won't go into it too much. But I've also got a dipole, which is a trap dipole for 40. And I can't tell the difference between the two. And if I'm on 40 and 80, if I'm on 40 and above, the guys can't tell me the difference. And so I don't know what direction it's radiating in, obviously. I've never mapped it, but just the guys I talk around the place and if I'm getting into Europe sometimes, they can't tell the difference.
Gut feeling, Peter, is this: that you sometimes get to Europe, it's good. Gut feeling is they're probably quite low signals, and it doesn't really matter what you switch to. They can hear you, and you've got through. I'm not going to sort of do a full analysis, but why don't you build a 20-meter vertical? Not for 40 and 80, right? Why don't you build a 20-meter vertical, stick it up on a bloody tree or something, and then your Europeans will go, oh, hey, you're much stronger now. Yeah, much stronger now. And by the way, are you talking to a lot of VK guys on 40 and 80?
Mostly West Australia. So my maximum distance is about 600 kilometres.
Well, it probably doesn't matter what you do, right? You're creating a bubble of RF as best you can, and you're doing your, 500 miles. Yeah, and you will, It's difficult to cock it up on this, bubble of RF stuff.
Yeah.
What you want is an antenna where people locally can't blooming hear you. Yeah, that's because your signal's going out to Europe.
That's an interesting comment that Peter makes, Callum. And I'm just checking. Yes, as I'm sure you're aware, it's a pretty vast continent, that we live on over here. And as you've quite rightly said, there's, 50, 60 countries within 2,000 kilometres of you. It's not uncommon for me to hear from some of the guys in VK6 the challenges they have in domestic contests, for example, because it is literally pretty close to 3,000 kilometres from Perth to the eastern seaboard of Australia, where I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's probably 70 to 80% of amateurs are on the eastern seaboard of Australia. So I think that's good advice.
You're into double hop over land, over arid land as well. So that is going to be a difficult one.
That'd be a good thing to try out, Peter. A 20-metre vertical is very easy to make, and string out 16 or 32 radials a couple of metres long.
Yeah, I made one. I built a 20-metre from scrap, I think is the title of the video.
Okay, just one other question, if I can do one more. If you're going to, regardless of the number of radials you stick out, do they have to be 360 degrees, or can they be clumped together a bit?
You can do a 180. There'll be about 1 or 2 dB loss on the other side. Some people think you've got gain on where the radials are. Actually, you're getting a loss on the other side. But no, not a lot of loss. You'll hardly notice it. I've got customers with 90-degree radials, and they can't blooming tell,
That's interesting. Any other questions? Just turn yourselves off mute. I've got a small screen.
Stan put his hand up.
I'm not seeing any. Are you seeing any hands up, Callum?
I saw Stan, ZL3TK.
Go ahead, Stan.
Raise his hand. Come off mute, Stan.
Yeah, I was trying to. Callum, good evening to you. Very good to hear your ideas. I haven't got a question, but I do have an observation about your kits and the quality of them. I've watched a lot of videos. And what I want to say is that it was actually the sort of attention paying attention as you have done to the detail and the quality that allowed Britain to win the war, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Think of the Avro Lancaster, and how many times did it mechanically fail? Very, very few. That's due to the quality of the ground staff.
Right.
And what we're seeing here is a sort of a repeat of that. Fine English quality. So I commend you on it, Callum. Thank you.
Well done. As a little funny detail, Holly Farm, there's an airport just round the corner here. Well, it was a Second World War Spitfire land, squadron. And in 1944, after the air superiority had been nailed, they converted this to a radio Royal Signals experimental world, right? And so maybe I'm carrying on the legacy.
Fair enough, too.
Yeah. In fact, the runway came right up past one of the runways came right up past our unit here. I think this whole thing was built on one of the, runways. Thank you, Stan. And by the way, you look like the captain of the bloody ship.
Oh, which one?
The one I'm on.
All right. Have we got any other questions or commentary out there?
I'd like to know whether Callum's going to make any more movies.
What sort of movie?
Well, your radio documentaries. You're from the Ministry of whatever it is.
Barker Crunchington.
Yes.
I'm really.
He's marvelous.
Yeah, Barker is unfortunately I've lost him. We're the hunt for Barker Crunchington is on, and we will discover him again. He's a character. I started his own channel, actually. He's got a few videos up.
Was he inspired by our Sir Les Patterson by any chance?
I don't know who. I just thought he would be quite funny to create a character,
Absolutely, yeah.
Particularly, because it's I mean, it's sunny now, but in the winter when it's raining and everything, and I just can't get out to the field, I just got more time, and my mind wanders and I start creating stuff. So the winter before, I did an 86,000 word novel in 5 weeks. I had been thinking about it for 3 years and planned it all out, but I said, but that's the focus, the ADHD again, you see.
Yeah, isn't ADHD a wonderful thing?
Well, apparently. Unfortunately, I don't have a off button.
Autism works well as also.
Yeah, I've got that too.
Have we got any other questions or comments at all for Callum?
Well, I've had a delightful. Oh,
Chris, Peter VK3GQ. I'd just like to thank Callum for all your efforts in the antennas you've designed and the work you do. You've certainly inspired me over the last 10 years in particular. My background's in broadcasting, where I started as an apprentice, sort of in the areas where Chris is living now. And when you're working in antennas that have been electrically lengthened and fields that have been had copper wire laid down every 120 degrees, and it's a directional system. It's been quite rewarding seeing what you're doing and using your product as well. I've still got my classic up in the backyard, and it makes a hell of a difference. So personally, thanks very much for what you've done. It's greatly appreciated, mate.
Oh, bless you. Thanks, Peter. Have we ever spoken on 20 meters? If one of my early morning, your evening, late afternoons?
No, we haven't. I tend to be working till about 1800 hours local across country Victoria. So fortunately, I'm home tonight, which was great.
Okay, I want to do another big blast on 20, possibly your Friday afternoon, my Friday morning.
I'll just add that, Callum. I recently downsized from about 6,000 square meters of land to 900, and what I did with the signature about 2 weeks ago, I was lacking anything on 80 meters, but I have a 2-story veranda, and I have a 6-meter pole attached to the top of that veranda, which gets it about 11 meters off the ground. Now, horizontally, it's about 14 meters away from the base of the DX Commander. So I cut a quarter wave on 80 meters. I added a little bit for the unknowns. I ran it, and it's running at about a 50 to 60 degree angle. I just attached it to one of the feed point, ran it to the top of that pole, and then ran it down to the stink pole from the toilet, and came downstairs and measured it, and it was resonant a little bit too high. So I went back, I got out a calculator and a spreadsheet, and I thought, right, I need to take about 1.2 meters off that. So I'm always conservative. I went up on the roof and I cut 80 centimeters off it, and being a CW guy, it's resonant at 3.53 megahertz. And do you know what? It's had almost no impact on the resonance of the other bands.
No, it won't. No. Yeah.
So, it's a very, very flexible solution for those of us who no longer have the luxury of a lot of land.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of fun.
Have you got any sort of closing comments or anything you'd like to add before I wrap it up? And I know we've taken a fair bit of your morning, so thank you.
No, don't worry. I'm not normally in until about 11 o'clock anyway, and it's got 15 minutes. Closing. I would say that I've got an open mind, but there's a lot of people in our world who've got closed minds about anything, and so I came up with this phrase, enjoy radio, which is just we're all busy doing other stuff as well, apart from me. I'm slightly fixated on what I do, but when you do concentrate on ham radio, our license conditions, it probably mirrors yours a little bit. It's all about self-development and self-training and everything else. That could be putting up a bloody great winch and 3 scaffolding poles and trying to break some mechanical thing, and it could be surface mount technology and I don't know, microphones and audio paths and coax runs and feeders, and I don't think any of us will ever in our lifetime fully appreciate and understand all the way from one to one propagation and everything else. Just keep your open mind, enjoy what you do, and a quarter wave vertical on 20 meters is probably a lovely little experiment that we should all do if we've never tried a vertical.
Yeah, terrific.
And last thing, don't just test it on receive. Test it on transmit. That was my big mistake for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That held me back. Yeah.
Good.
Good.
All right.
Well done, boys.
You've come off mute, Alan, 6CQ. Have you got a question, or did you just come off mute?
No, I just came off mute just in case I had something, just in case I did have a question, and I could fire it in fairly quickly. But no, very illuminating and very entertaining.
Oh, well done, mate.
Terrific.
Thanks, Alan.
All right. Well, look, on behalf of all of us over here down under, VK and ZL, Callum, thank you very much for your time this morning. I know I've found it really interesting, and I've sort of been using your antennas for some years, as you know. But I mean, look, it's a vertical, as you say. So thank you very much for your time on behalf of everyone once again. And hopefully at some point in the future, you might come back and share with us some of your thoughts on receive antennas.
Happy to come back. Let's put your antenna strategy for a small lot.
Terrific.
Thank
you very much.
Lovely.
All righty,
okay,
everyone.
boys.
Thanks for joining us. You can head off and have your morning tea, and we'll go and either have dinner or hot chocolate.
Indeed. Very good day, everybody.
Thanks, Callum. All the best.
Thanks, Callum.
Thanks all.
Bye. Thanks, guys.